Good afternoon and welcome to the meeting of the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce Quality of Life Committee. This is part of an ongoing series of committee meetings that we have been sponsoring and opening to our community during the pandemic. And it has been a learning experience to learn about Zoom and having meetings and people being able to participate from their offices and from their homes. And we're so glad that you could join us today. I'm Stephen Camp. I'm the chairman of the board of directors of the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce. This is our centennial year. I'm a resident of North Oak Cliff and I'm an attorney in downtown Dallas. And we have, during the pandemic, focused a lot of our efforts on the delivery of services to small business people who are in Oak Cliff. And in the process, we have learned a lot about Oak Cliff and we've learned a lot about the delivery of services. We have noted that the COVID pandemic has fallen disproportionately on men and women of color. It has fallen the burden of infections, excuse me, and with deaths have fallen disproportionately, again, excuse me, on men and women of color. And again, as we've also moved forward through the pandemic, we have seen public outrage at issues involving what can only be described as systemic racism in society. And we at the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce want to be cognizant of the issues. We want to address the issues because we believe it is good for business. I mentioned briefly that I'm an attorney in downtown Dallas and I'm with one of the larger law firms in the country. And we have undertaken a process to identify the impact of systemic racism within our firm, to take affirmative actions to correct those issues, and to become more aware of how what we do impacts business opportunities, and just recognize that these are issues that do have an adverse impact on commerce. It has an adverse impact on our community, and want to make sure that we are appropriately addressing it. So we thought this was a timely topic for the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce to address. So I'll turn it over to our chair of our committee, Andrea Sanders, to give a further introduction.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. I'm excited for everyone that has joined us for this candid discussion about race, frankly, and this is our kind of the second installment of our critical conversations. And this afternoon, what we'd like to talk about is what I think each one of us have dealt with in our careers, is navigating some of those difficult conversations or situations related to race, particularly in the workplace. Whether you are a person of color or not, we've often been in situations where we're either uncomfortable, offended, or confused. And we have got the right person today, Ms. Elizabeth Moffitt, with president of the Christopher Quinn Group, that will help us with some insightful information about this topic that will hopefully help us navigate through these situations a little better. If nothing else, we'll come away informed and enlightened, and hopefully you'll enjoy this. I am so excited when I learned that we were able to get Liz to do this. I'm thrilled because I know how great she is. You will be once this is over. So sit back, enjoy. Liz is particularly, she's comfortable with questions. If you don't have to wait to the end of her presentation, if you've got a question or comment, feel free to hit that chat button and let us know. And with that, we presentation on racism. Liz, thanks for being here. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, that happens. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you all on the call. And I am so excited to be talking about this topic. I've literally been, waiting for someone to start this conversation. and never thinking that it was going to be me that would be asked to start the conversation. And of course, initially, I wanted to back out. I just want to be straight up and honest with you. I wanted to back out. But when I got ready to send the email to back out, someone reached out to me and talked to me about how they had been treated at work. And so when that happened, that was my cue that I needed to have a voice and start the conversations about racism, about how individuals are being treated, and how the cultures of your organization needs to change. Now, while we think that we know everything about our employees and everything that is going on in our organizations, we have to pay close attention to that. And that means asking questions. Ask your employees questions as it relates to how are you doing? And if you get the regular answer, oh, I'm doing fine. Well, if you get that kind of answer, then that means that you need to go a little deeper. Go deeper and ask more questions so that you can actually find out what is really going on within my own organization or within my own department. Whatever your situation is, where you stand in an organization, whether you're a business owner like myself, you are in control of change that will happen in your organization. This is an uncomfortable topic. And of course, I don't mind making you uncomfortable because this is something that really needs to be talked about. It's something that I deal with my clients all the time. And we talked about the fact that I'm the president and CEO of my organization. My organization is called the Christopher Quinn Group. It's actually named after our two sons. And so the lives that, that we have experienced and bringing two sons up in, America and in this community, we had to bring our kids up differently. We had to educate them differently because they were of color. And because they are of color, we had to tell them to always be careful. Always pick up the phone and call us if you feel like you're being trailed. If you anything like that, those are the types of conversations that we had to have with our own children. They didn't really have all the freedoms that everybody else's children had that were not of color. They didn't have those experiences. And so, again, I am very excited. I am going to share my presentation with you so that we can actually get right down to it. And again, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat so that we can actually get to your questions as we go along, okay? Do we have any questions or concerns before we dive in? Okay, all right, I'm going straight in. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the impact of racism in corporate America. Again, I talked about the fact that it's an uncomfortable topic, but we're gonna talk about it today. So my presentation will be interactive. I will ask you questions and I will expect you to give me some insight, give me some feedback on what you know about racism, what your experiences have been. Now you have a button there that you can raise your hand or you can give me some thumbs up, and feel free to use those. Because my first question is, how many of you have been impacted by racism? Show of hands. How many of you have been impacted? Okay, Steve, thank you. All right, okay, Philando. And I see a young lady down at the bottom, but I can't see her name. But this is good. This is good feedback already. LaShonda, fantastic. Thank you all. To some degree, we have all been impacted by racism. We may not have known that we were, targeted from a racial standpoint, but everybody has been targeted in some way. Individuals that are not of color. If you were to say that, you have Black friends, or you have Hispanic friends, or people of color that are your friends, then you may have friends that, may say, okay, so I'm not going to hang with you anymore. I'm not going to have anything to do with you anymore. So I've seen those type of things throughout my life. And I'm not gonna, come on here and tell you that my best friends are, Black, white, Hispanic. I have friends of all color because my parents raised us to not see color. But then there are some individuals that were not taught that lesson, and they didn't grow up in my household. So the things that I have experienced, you may not have experienced them in the way that I experienced them, but you did experience them. So our topics of discussion are going to be: what is racism? What does it look like? Where are we? What do we do about it? And what does that look like? Because of course it's going to look different to all of us. But first, we are going to start out by talking about what is racism. Okay, so racism, according to Merriam-Webster, racism is a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capabilities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. So what I am seeing from that is that that superior race is not people of color. And that's what brings about racism. So when we look for employees to join our organization, and you look at our resume. My name is Elizabeth, so it's a pretty common name. But when you look at LaShonda or Lakeisha, you have some type of reaction, and sometimes it's systemic, which means that you see that and you just automatically say, okay, all right, this is a person of color. We have too many people of color in our company already. Let's just, find somebody else. So you have people like me, who's an executive coach and a career coach, who helps individuals put together their resumes to show how fantastic they are, and for them to be excited about the skills that they have to bring to the table. Yet they're very disappointed when they walk away. They don't feel like there has been any type of connection whatsoever, other than, okay, thank you for coming in. We are going to keep your resume, and if we're interested, we will reach out to you. Okay, so some individuals change their name on their resume and use their middle name, which might be different. It might be Mary, it might be Elizabeth, it might be Nancy. It's something other than something that we would consider, a cultural name. Okay, so what does it look like? And this is one of the things that I've been hearing so much about, is white privilege. In the US systems of power, such as government, law enforcement, education, financial systems, they all have been developed through a white culture lens, rewarding those who can adapt to white culture and punishing those who do not. That, to me, is where racism starts. And of course, we've been having these conversations for years. We've just been having them in our own communities. And so now we're taking this thing, and people don't want to be silent anymore. And so you have to be open to that. So if you have policy and procedures that says we have an open door policy, then you need to be open to what your employees are saying. How are they feeling? What is this making them feel like? I think it's important that you take the time to listen. And in some cases, take a deep breath before you actually jump into that conversation. And again, it's systemic. It's a learned trait. I have 8 brothers, 4 sisters. We grew up on a farm. Now that's a lot of people that lived in one house, and we all came out just great. And well, of course, that's my opinion because they're my siblings. But anyway, we have had quite a number of individuals who laugh because we have a large family, but that's not anything that bothers us because we care about one another and we look after one another. And so there are some things that even people of color learn that are systemic. So I'm not just saying that it's only people that are not of color that are systemic. We have our own systemic ways as well. It's learned through the way that we're taught, the way that our experiences are. And as you go through those experiences, some things just stick. And while we say that, we're not a racist and we, could never be racist, we have to all be careful about the things that we actually say. And I know you all probably listen to the news, and I'm not going to make any assumptions, but if you listen to the news, you hear through the government systems of power, the individuals that we vote in that, end up mistreating us all in some way or another, but definitely people of color. But that systemic way that you think, you have to sometimes take a step back and say, wow, okay, before you even open your mouth, be ready for what's getting ready to come out. Because it could be shocking, it could be alarming, and it could be just downright disrespectful. And so you have to think about what it is that you're actually getting ready to say, and just think. Take a deep breath before you say something, because once it's out there, you cannot take it back. Now, one of the things that I saw in the write-up for this session was the N-word. And the N-word has been used within our own cultures, but it should never be used in a corporate environment. It should never, ever be used at work. It's inappropriate. There are other words that are disrespectful. And so you have to, in order to know what that feels like, you have to get involved. You have to know and want to learn about, okay, so why is this word so, why does this word bring about so much chaos? Because until you've walked in the shoes of someone that is of color, then you probably have no idea. Or if you fought on the front line with those individuals that have been mistreated, then you may have some idea. Another thing is, from disrespect, keep your hands to yourself. And that goes beyond saying. That is your entire culture within your organization, not just people of color, not just people of white privilege. It's about everybody. Keep your hands to yourself. We have individuals that, have braids, or they, shape their hair according to their culture. And so it's not respectful to ask that person, can I touch your hair? And so I think it's important that you know how small things can actually grow bigger, way bigger than what you anticipated. And then making assumptions, how you interact, whether you might think that if my voice gets louder, then I'm being aggressive. But then there are those individuals that say, well, I'm just passionate about what I'm saying. So you have to know the person in order to determine whether they're being aggressive or just whether they're standing, taking a stand based on their beliefs. So not everybody that gets loud and rowdy are aggressive. So think about what your definition of aggressive is and really look at the situation and say, okay, now was this an aggressive situation or was this just a person passionate about, taking a stand? Citizenship. Of course, citizenship is you have individuals from all different cultures. I think it's really important that you understand those cultures of individuals because now we bring them into our organization, and we bring them into our organization because we want to be able to match the level of clients that we have. We need people that speak several languages. And when you're bringing in those individuals to be able to talk or speak a different language to the customers, then that means that you're inviting those individuals, their beliefs, the cultures that they have actually lived in and grown in and learned in. So you can't just say, shut that off. You can't, if you speak Spanish, you can't just walk around and speak Spanish to other Spanish speaking people. You can't say that because you have brought those individuals into your organization so that they can speak Spanish. So what's wrong with them being able to speak in their own dialect? Nothing. So don't tell them not to speak in their native tongue. And we talked about names on resumes, and then just being dismissive. If someone comes to you and you think that, okay, this person is always coming to me with something, and you just dismiss it. Well, if you dismiss it, at some point, this is going to come back around and it is going to hit you right dead in the face because you didn't take care of it at the time that it was at a low pressure level. Things that don't get handled and dealt with at a low pressure level tends to elevate. And when they elevate, then yes, you might end up with someone being aggressive. Okay? So deal with it while you can and while it's at a low pressure level. Okay, all right. Now, where are we? To me, we're as a country, as a world, we're in an intensive care unit. Now, what are some of the things that happens in an intensive care unit? Well, when you go into an intensive care unit, you can't take everybody with you. Your entire family. Just assume that I was in ICU. I've got 8 brothers, 4 sisters. And do you think they're going to let all of those individuals come into intensive care just because they love me, just because, they believe in me, just because there are, they feel that them being there is going to make a difference? No. Intensive care is a time that we have to be put aside by ourselves in order to think things through. And thinking things through, or intensive care, is when the doctors only want certain people that are around you that can do something about it. And so that's the same thing that has to happen in your organizations. And establishing your culture is get the people involved that can do something about it. There is absolutely no need to talk to people that have no interest. They can't do anything about it. So you have to know that everybody is not going to be on point with where you are. It's a tough situation, it's a tough conversation, but you have to be ready for it. No matter what comes up, you need to be able to answer those questions. And that doesn't mean that you will be able to answer those questions right on the spot and in that moment. But what that means is that if you don't know, then say you don't know, and you'll come back with an answer. Okay, so don't feel like you have to know everything about people of color right on the spot, because this is something that has been put aside for so many years that it's going to take some time to be able to do that. Those are things that I literally help my clients do. When I'm providing human resources and establishing a culture that works within their organization, then those are some of the things that I have to do, is take on those tough conversations. If I feel that there is someone that is unhappy about something, they may not want to talk about it. And if they don't want to talk about it, don't pressure them to talk about it unless you feel like they have been harmed in some way. So you do ask enough questions to get the right answers, and then you do something about it. If there's nothing you can do about it, then say that there is absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Okay? All right. Now, I haven't seen any questions pop up just yet, and I don't know that I will, but I hope you are taking in what I'm saying. I'm hoping that it is making sense. And if not, I want to hear from you. Get in that chat room and let me hear from you. Okay. Now,
Liz,
yes.
I've got one comment or question was, how do you handle comments like, I'm not racist, but I'm just more comfortable with my own kind? How do you respond to those type of comments is a question that was asked.
Okay. Now we're talking about in our organizations, in the corporate culture. So there may be people that are more comfortable associating or being affiliated with their own kind or their own race. However, when you hire someone, you're hiring them to be a team player. You are hiring them to work with other people that are different from themselves. And so my point to that is that you bring that up from the beginning. Don't wait until someone says, I'm more comfortable with my own kind. That I won't say that doesn't make sense, but when people sign on the dotted line saying they accept that position, they need to know what they're accepting. What is the culture really like? And so you tell them that they're going to be working with individuals that are not like them. And so that's what being a team player is. And when I look at job listings, I see team player, being able to communicate, being organized. I see all of these things. So when you have someone that makes that type of comment, then you remind them that they told you in the interview that they were a team player. You can't just work with people that are just like yourself. You have to work with everybody that's on the team. So that's how I would handle that. I hope you appreciated that answer, but I keep interview notes. So when I get responses like that, I can go back to the interview notes and remind them of what they said before they actually got the job. Okay?
Just a follow up to that, Liz, thank you. A follow up to that is, what happens when it's peer to peer and it's not management to employee, but it's colleague to colleague, peer to peer? Would you answer it the same way or similar?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times it is going to be peer to peer. And, based on, our educational level, based on our experiences that we've had in other organizations. Sometimes you're going to get people making those statements, but you still have to let them know, okay, you said that you were a team player. So anybody, and typically when those type of situations come up, somebody else gets involved. It's either the manager or supervisor, director, or human resources. And so that's where mediation comes in. And when mediation comes in, that person is neutral and they are helping those individuals understand how some of the things that they say are inappropriate and out of line. And so helping them to understand how people feel when they make certain statements. Okay, hope that helped. All right, so we all have triggers. And what I tend to do is tell people what my triggers are. And typically the people that are closest to you, they know what your triggers are. And sometimes they'll take advantage of that. And they will do something just so that you can, get upset, act in a certain way. So there's times that, individuals will be set up for, to create a trigger. And so when that happens, you have to know how to deal with yourself and put yourself in order. Because sometimes it takes yourself as opposed to someone else to tell you what to do. And the more you know about yourself, then the easier it is for you to think before you speak. And sometimes that's what you need to tell your employees. Think before you speak. Was that even necessary? Did that make anyone feel any better that you said that? Did you even feel any better that you said that? So whatever your triggers are, know them. And that way you can decide to do something different, to act a different way, as opposed to flying off the handle but again, those conversations are really, really key. And you can't just assume that you bring people into your organization and they don't have those situations where they're not going to clash, but just be able to walk them through those clashes. And in the beginning, tell them that there will be times that, they may not see eye to eye. It's okay. Conflict is natural. It's normal. And conflict has a negative connotation. But that doesn't mean that just because two people don't agree that it's a bad thing, because I don't expect everybody to agree with me. And so no one should always expect everybody to agree with what they say and what they do and how they do it. All right, so how do we transform habits of racism harm? I'm going to start with embracing what we share. What are some of those things that make us the same? And I really would like to hear from you all about what are some of those things that make us the same. And you can unmute yourself and tell me, and that'll get us through this quicker. But at least I want to hear from 3 or 4 people, because there's a lot of you on here, but I do want to hear from you. What are some of the things that we share in common?
Usually there's a love for the company that we work for, or the
love for the company that you work for,
or the industry we work in.
Okay, all right, fantastic. Fantastic. That's a good thing. What else? Thank you.
I was going to say a shared focus on accomplishing the goals set by the company.
Yes, yes, yes. Share goals. Share goals. That's important. Okay, let's think a little deeper.
We all have the same needs as far as housing and food and companionship and connectedness.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We do have all those same needs. So I really like that. It reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I know you've all heard about it or seen it somewhere throughout your life and education. So great, great, great. I really love that answer. Thank you. Okay, Dina Creasy.
Hey, Liz.
Hi there. How are you?
Good.
All right. Tell me something that we all share.
Something that we all share is a zeal for life, I guess. I'm thinking a zeal for life.
Yes, we have a zeal for life. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Kimberly Traylor.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
One thing we all share is I'm not sure I'm saying something that hasn't been said, but one thing we all share is, ultimately we're focused, right? We're trying to take care of our families. We are trying to move with purpose, right? We're trying to make a contribution to our organizations. We're trying to, I don't know, I don't have much more than that.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Okay, LaShonda Lewis.
It's just our humanity. We're all human. We
Yeah.
bleed the same. If you cut us, we're going to bleed. We literally are human. It's our humanity that really brings us. That's something we all have in common. We're all of the human race. We have different cultures, but we're one race, which is human race.
Human race. Absolutely. Absolutely. These are all great answers. And so when you think about racism, and I can't ever say that you would ever erase racism altogether, but there has to be an effort. And starting with that effort, we have to embrace what we share. And all of those things that you all talked about are things that we all share. We all have some of the same needs. We are all, human. Number one, we are all human. And so that's one of the reasons that we all have triggers and all of those other things that you talked about. It requires honest effort from everyone. So these are things that you need to talk about up front before you have someone sign on the dotted line. To talk about your culture and what your culture represents. What does your product represent? Why do you, because I have people, ask me, so why do you need someone that speaks Spanish? Well, because we have a niche that we need to have someone who can speak Spanish. And so people feel like they're being disrespected because they're not the one that's hired. But if we need someone that speaks Spanish, then those are the traits that we look for. So there will be times that we will automatically, look for a certain race. But for the most part, you look at what that person is going to bring to the organization.
Dave, will you check something for me?
Huh? Say that again.
Oh, my apologies. I thought I was on mute.
Okay, not a problem, not a problem. So we can't heal if we can't talk to one another or each other. And we can't talk to each other until we understand why we can't. So what is it that we can't talk openly with one another? And in some cases, that word professionalism kind of eludes us at some times. But I see so many resumes and people talking about their level of professionalism and how professional they are. But you have to really think about, okay, so before you say it, is that professional? And if it's not, then don't say it. If it's not anything that you don't need to know, then don't ask it. But when you get into trying to change your culture and change the dynamics of your organization to eliminate racism altogether, you have to have those tough conversations. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Even if it's uncomfortable for you to talk about it, be willing to be uncomfortable. Do you know how uncomfortable I feel today having to even talk about this topic? But I am going to not only teach this topic and this session, but I am going to continue to actually talk about racism and how to erase it, or how to remove it, or how to talk about it. And just talking doesn't mean that that people are that you're communicating, because the number one thing that we forget when we're communicating is to listen. We have times when we're cutting people off. If you don't agree with what they're saying, you have a tendency to just jump in there and say what you want to say, or you just flat cut them off. You don't give them an opportunity to complete what they're saying. So communication is all about listening. It's all about what you see. Facial expressions. You can tell a lot about a person by watching their facial expressions, their body movements. All of that plays a key in communication. And so you also have to think about, what do you say? Be careful about what you say.
I had another person to ask a question, which was, how do you talk about facial expressions and tones and so forth? So if you've got a colleague that you feel that their comments or the way they treat you, their tone is due to racism, but you have no way of proving that, you can't pinpoint it, so you can't say it's racist, but that's how it makes you feel. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that without saying I could read your mind or read your heart, but I'm reading your actions and the only thing I can conclude that it has to do with race? How does one address that?
My response to that would be, have a culture that you allow your employees to solve some of their own problems. And it doesn't have to be, it does not have to be out of character. It doesn't have to be shouting. All you have to do is that individual can say, hey, okay, I don't know if your intentions were meant to be bad, but when I hear you say this, this is how I feel. Can we talk about that? Or if your intent is bad, it bothers me, and I would prefer it if you don't say it in that manner when you're talking to me. So allow your employees to work out some of their own issues. Okay, I think
Thank you.
That's about all that I can say about that. But if you ever have to get involved, just know that you need to have a neutral way of dealing with it. Don't take sides.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions. Thank you guys so much. Okay, consider discomfort a wake-up call, inviting us to inspect the ways that we have been programmed to blame or distrust one another. So if you think about all those individuals trying to figure out how to climb the ladder in the corporate dynamic. So what are we willing to do to get to the next step? Are we willing to step on somebody Are we willing to put them in a bad light in order to move up? So this, to me, is a wake-up call when we're pitting employees against each other. I think it's a bad move. Don't talk about other employees to other employees. It's just disrespectful. It's not professional, and you want to be the one to start the conversation and not have people feeling like they're being mistrusted or not trusted because you're starting little fires here and there, because those fires will get bigger. So if you're in a position, well, if you're in any position, if you're working at all and you work with other people, don't pit people against one another. I think it's wrong. And that is part of some of our problems. And do what you say you're going to do. Be an example for what you want other people to be. Okay, so how to step into the conversation. Prior to meeting, center yourself by taking 3 deep breaths. So taking those 3 deep breaths, just kind of puts you in a position to where, okay, I'm still afraid, but I need to have this conversation. So I don't know how you would go about it in your organization, but I would suggest getting help from a mediator, getting help from your human resources, and they can actually help you start those conversations. Remind yourself that nothing is personal, permanent, or perfect. Keep 50% of your awareness of your body and breath throughout the conversation. So it's okay to pause. It's okay to take a deep breath, because sometimes, again, the conversations are going to get tough. So before you answer a question, feel okay with taking a deep breath. That's okay that there's silence in the air. When you meet, sit face to face, making gentle eye contact and observing body posture and subtle shifts. So take note of all of those things, because sometimes we can figure out what a person is feeling just by their body language. How much are they shifting in their chair? How are their faces scrunching up? Is there, tension in their face? You may want to request that the person not interrupt for the first several moments, because sometimes we have individuals that just want to just jump in there and just start asking questions or just commenting based on what their beliefs are and what they think. And it may not be time for that. So request your people not to interrupt for the first several seconds. And you want to have, to some degree, scripted out what you want to say, why you want to say it, so that you start out with that and it puts everybody on a pretty level playing field. Use a tone, pace, and pitch.
Liz, may I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Okay, since we're talking about interruptions. India brought up a point before you move past the personal. She said, how is it not personal when we are talking about race? Shouldn't that be personal? Isn't that personal?
It is personal. It is very personal. And you have to be aware of, what makes it personal. What are your feelings about racism? You have to first deal with that. Whether you feel like you're being mistreated, you have to understand why you feel bad about it. What is it that I can do about this situation and racism? If you are the person of color, then how does people taking pot shots at you because of your color make you feel bad or feel good or feel personal? Well, number one, taking it personal and someone that don't know you, you're giving over your power. And when you give over your power to someone that can hurt you with words, then you're giving up way too much. So again, yes, it could be personal, but you have to deal with that. You have to know what about it is making it personal for you. And you have to feel free to be able to stand up and open your mouth. And when you open your mouth, know what you're going to say. It doesn't mean that you've got to be angry. It does mean that you find your own voice and you use your own voice to protect yourself. But don't keep giving up your peace, your own ideals. Don't keep giving those over to other people who will actually take advantage of you. Don't let people take advantage of you. Find your voice. Use your voice by telling people, okay, this is not comfortable to me. And when you say this, I'm feeling uncomfortable. So I would prefer it if you don't say that anymore. So you do have to step in there and you do have to protect yourself. You don't wait for someone else to protect you. Just assume that you had a child and someone was messing with your child. Would you stand back and allow that to continue to happen? No, that's personal. You're going to say something, you're going to do something.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, I heard myself getting loud. Okay, all right. Use a tone, pace, and pitch of sincere kindness and curiosity. Pitch of sincere kindness and curiosity. And remind yourself of your deepest intention. Whether you're the person that's being racist or the person that is on the receiving end of racism. Use a tone, pace, and pitch of sincere kindness and curiosity, and remind yourself of your deepest intention. Do you intend for people to not treat you as a racist? Do you not want to be put in that position of just because you're a person of color that it's okay for people to mistreat you? No, you want to make sure that you know what you want to get from the conversation that you have. It's okay to have conversations, and it's important to have conversations. Okay, so what does that change look like? Be aware of what is going on in your community. This is one way that you can actually start. Social media, use social media to gauge what is happening. If you don't use social media now, I mean, you're gonna miss out on so many different things. So it doesn't mean that you've got to stay on social media all day, every day, but there is a time that you need to know what's happening in the community, so that, because those things your employees are going to bring into your organization. So you have to know how to be ready for those things. And as long as you know what's going on, then you'll know how to handle it. Water cooler talks bring about familiarity. So there's times that, you'll have your employees that will just have a discussion. You might not have a water cooler, but they may stand up against the wall. So, but it brings about familiarity, because then you're feeling more comfortable with having those conversations and finding out more about each other. Educate yourself. I don't like the news, but I listen to the news so that I understand what's going on in the world. So CNN, all of those other news channels. I mean, just pick one or two, and just, you don't have to believe in what they're saying, but what you do need to know is the impact that it's going to have on your organization and your employees and the people that you work with, your clients. You need to know what's going on and how that is going to affect your clients as well. Get involved. And I just listed 3 things here, but there are so many other things that I know that you could actually bring about. Cinco de Mayo, Black Lives Matter. That might be, you know, talking with your employees about what this means to them. How does that affect their job? Because it is going to affect their jobs on a daily basis. National Day of Prayer. Get involved on levels that you haven't thought about before. And the more that you have water cooler talks, you'll find out more about what's going on in the community and what you can actually bring to the community and what you can bring to the communications that you need to have to change the structure of your culture within your organization.
Liz, we had a question.
Okay.
It says, what tips do you have for well-meaning non-Black counterparts to engage and help resolve race-related incidents where their natural response may be to not engage in fear of offending someone? And the follow-up to that is, how do we establish that culture in our companies?
Okay. If I understand your question correctly, which I think I do, that's all about communicating and not being afraid to have those dialogues. This has to be intentional. So when you're intentional, you open up with, okay, this is an intentional dialogue that we have to have because of the change that we want to have and the change that we want to see when we walk into our own workplaces. You don't want individuals to feel uncomfortable when they walk into work. You don't want to punish people because they feel uncomfortable. And I've seen that. And whether they were aware that they were punishing a person or not, it was happening. So everything affects us when we're in our workplace. So communicate and be intentional about the conversations that you have as it relates to racism, changing the structure, changing the dynamics of the culture of your organization. If you're an all Black organization, don't allow your employees to walk around using the N-word. And in other cultures, it's just a no-no. Tell them just flat out, no, that's not what my company represents or my department represents or my team represents. So be open. I know you might offend some, but what you want to say up front is, look, this is something that we have to talk about. I don't want to offend anyone. And if I say something that you feel is inappropriate, then tell me that it's inappropriate so that I don't get comfortable saying it. And I can stop saying some of the things that I've said in the past that you feel were totally inappropriate. So just be upfront about the fact that you have to change.
Yes.
Does that help?
I thought it was a great answer. I was asking for somebody, but I thought it was a great answer. One other question, Liz, was, I guess for clarification, they said, isn't not seeing color kind of disrespecting the differences in our races and what we bring to the table? So shouldn't we actually see color instead of pretending that we don't?
Yeah, definitely. See color. See color. Color is beautiful. Color brings a totally different mindset. to your organization and to the conversation. So yeah, I would never tell you not to see color. Color is important because with every organization that is represented on this call, there is a reason for you to acknowledge color, because we all come from different dialects. We come from different backgrounds. We come from different cultures. We've all had different experiences, some good, some bad, but this is an opportunity to change the way that we think, the way that we see. We don't want to just say, okay, all right, I'm just not going to see color. But I see color, and I see someone who is bringing something dynamic to my organization. And when I see someone who is bringing something dynamic to our organization, then that's all that matters. What is it that this person will be able to help me do, or how will they help my company grow? Everybody matters. Now, I remember saying in the beginning that our parents told us, don't see color. But of course, I embrace color. My entire family is like the Rainbow Coalition, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So you have to be in a position to where you're okay, and get to the point to where you look at what the person is bringing and embrace how we're the same, embrace how we're different. Because again, we're all one human race, but we all bring something different to the table. Doesn't matter what color you are.
So I want everybody to know I'm not ignoring your question. I'm gonna allow Liz to get through her presentation. And I know we're running a little bit on time, lots of questions, but we're gonna stick around for those that can. And then hopefully, okay. Liz will share her presentation if she can. Okay. I've got several requests for that.
Okay, all right. So if you had to think, the question is, which one are you? And you might think, oh gosh, I'm a vegetarian, so I'm gonna be a carrot. Or I'm a vegan, so I won't be the egg, because that's dairy. And then we have a coffee bean. So you've got a carrot, you've got an egg, and you've got a coffee bean. So when you look at these, you might think, wow, okay, carrots are crispy. Eggs they're going to look the same whether they're boiled or whether they are just, regular raw egg. And then the coffee bean brings about something completely different. Now, all of them are sturdy. All in their current state, they are all sturdy. They all have some things in common. But when you put them in hot water, what happens? And I say, when we get in hot water, that's when you see the real us come out. Like, if I'm, if I don't know myself well enough, I've been called stubborn before. And when I'm called stubborn, then I'm pretty much being stubborn, okay? So I know that. So now I know how to shift and change and be different, act different, see things different, respond different. But when you put a carrot in hot water, hot boiling water, what's going to happen to it? It's going to become soft. It's still a carrot, but it's going to be soft. When you put an egg in hot water, it becomes hard on the inside. You've ever heard them call it a hard-boiled egg? Well, it looks the exact same. The carrot looks the exact same, but there are changes that happens to them when they are put under pressure. Then you've got the coffee bean. Now, what if you put the coffee bean in the hot boiling water? The coffee bean is going to change the water. It's going to put off this great aroma. If you're a coffee lover, one of the things that we actually do when we take that cup of coffee is we just put it under our nose and, and just smell it and take it in, and then we take a sip. I don't know what that does, but it's like, oh my God, I am getting ready to have something really delicious. And so the coffee bean is the thing that actually changes the dynamic of the boiling water. So what I'd like for you to take away from this is to be the change that you want to see in everyone else. That's the end of my presentation. I promise you I've had a marvelous time doing this presentation. I didn't realize that I was going to be so hyped and so excited, but I'll tell you, this is the beginning of something amazing for me, and I hope it is the same for you.
This was amazing, and I think our participants here would have loved to keep going because it's such great information, great questions. I hope you'll come back so we can do this again. I know I've walked away. I'll walk away a little more enlightened and definitely appreciative of your time and putting this together for us. Is this something that you can share with your presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send it over right away.
Awesome. I've got several requests for it. We definitely want to do that. And just in way of announcements, we will be continuing our discussion on racism next month with some of our elected officials to talk about racism and the impact on public policy. So stay tuned for information on that. Liz, you are the best. I don't know if Steve's still with us. Steve Camp.
I am. I apologize. We've been having internet problems all day at the house, which is when you have a whole bunch of people working from home, those are the issues you face. Liz, I truly appreciate everything you had to say. It was impactful, and we really, really, really appreciate you taking time to share with the members of the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce. For those who are on this webcast, I think it ought to be apparent that this is not your father's Chamber of Commerce. It's a very different style of Chamber of Commerce, and we have a very different style of leadership, and we want to be reflective of our community, and we want to be responsive to our community. So I encourage everyone to be involved with Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce. We intend to be an agent of change in our community and in our businesses. And again, thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you, guys.